Well, I've got some fun lights behind me here. I'm wearing a teal sweatshirt today, and I've got kind of shoulder length hair that's not organized in any fashion today. So it's your description. As we get started, I've got some blue lights behind me with some orange kind of moving kind of a rope light underneath my desk that you can see hopefully in frame, assuming I've done things half correctly. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about something that is really hard to articulate, and I don't have a script in the way that I've been starting to do on some of these videos. That is the hidden tax on being blind. This is going to be part one, and we're going to talk about time. Part two, we will talk about money. But when we talk about time and a hidden tax for being blind, like, what am I talking about? So first of all, this concept is one that I've seen bouncing around a couple of the blind specific spaces online, including a couple Facebook pages, groups that I'm in, that sort of thing. There may be wider kind of publications about it, but I wanted to kind of talk about my experience before I do too much more research, because I want you to understand this from my, I guess, reactionary perspective. And when you talk about hidden taxes on anything, like, let's say just an item that you purchase, like a house, or, maybe you're left some money in an estate or something, and there's hidden taxes that come up later. You weren't expecting them, maybe they weren't explained very well in the initial process, and it kind of comes and hits you, okay? That's kind of what we're talking about here, except it's a tax of time. And one of the things that I think people don't understand is, to set the stage, we, and more specifically, I feel like I'm living in one of the best times that you could be in to be blind in society. Because number one, I can do things like this, right? I can make content, I can talk to people about this lived experience, and there are at least a few people who are going to listen and take what I say and maybe think differently about the world, right? That wasn't always the case. Even, 20, 30 years ago, there was no space for people to have open conversation in such a public way about being disabled. And so with that caveat, right, I'm here in the best time that there is to be blind because I can talk about it. I'm here in the best time to be blind because there are resources for me that there weren't through a lot of, history for blind people. I have access to literature in the form of Braille. I've been fortunate enough personally to have access to training in life skills, travel, orientation and mobility, assistive technology, and much more. That always hasn't been the case, or hasn't always been the case, rather. And so, again, I want to say that this is arguably the best time that you have to be blind, and I think a lot of people look at that and they go, wow, that's great, and the world is kind of laid before you, right? The world is your oyster, And it is, provided you have a lot of support. And when you don't have that support, time is the first and sometimes the most expensive aspect of being disabled. Now, let's start with an easy one: transportation, okay? For the average non-disabled person, I don't know what the average commute time in the US is, but I would wager it's probably about 15 minutes, maybe 20. And that commute, let's say you have a 20-minute commute, okay? You wake up in the morning, you maybe start your car from your remote start, whatever you got, if you're fancy in Minnesota and you have the means to warm your car up before getting in there, right? You hop in your car, you drive your 20 minutes, and you're at work probably a few minutes before your shift starts, if you're a punctual human, and if not, maybe you're right on time. But that 20-minute window in the morning is something that's pretty fixed, but can be flexible if you're running a minute behind. If you're, feeling productive on a Monday and you want to get a head start on the week, you could head in early if you want, right? And if anything were to change, hey, I need you to come in a half hour early to work, that 20-minute window just shifts backward a half an hour, okay? When you're disabled, transportation, particularly if you can't drive, transportation looks a lot different. And that comes in a few forms. Now, I'm going to start with my typical experience in the city that I live in, which is a city of about 100,000 people. There is a bus network that I tend not to use because it is not the most conducive to me getting where I need to go in a timely manner. Is it functional? Yes. Should I arguably learn more about how to use it and how it works? Yes. However, time is a factor. And when you take a bus, let's say the bus comes twice an hour at 15 minutes past and 45 minutes past, so it comes every half hour. You have to be there on whichever of those two windows is going to get you where you're going with the most time to spare. So, for sake of argument, let's say I work at 9 o'clock, okay? And the bus that gets to my house at 8:45 would get me to work at 9:15. Well, that bus is out. So now I have to wait for the earlier bus, the 8:15 bus, and maybe that gets me to work at 8:45. So is that functional? Yes. But that means, number one, every single time I take that 8:15 bus, barring weather and traffic, I'm now 15 minutes early to work, whether I want to be or not. And some companies, have a policy where maybe you can't start until 9 o'clock, right? So now I'm stuck every single day in a week, 5 days a week. That's 10 days of pay period, 30 days a month, 365 days a year, whatever, not 365. You get my point. Every single day, you're 15 minutes early. Now, flip to the end of the day. I'm done at 5 o'clock. Same bus, same idea, but I can't take a 4:45 bus that would get me home at 5:15. I have to take the 5:15 bus. It'll get me home at 5:45. So now, 45 minutes after my day has ended, am I just getting home? And that's assuming there's no, run-ins with the bus, that sort of thing. Now, why did I explain that in so much detail? Because that's arguably the best case scenario with public transportation. It might be cheap, it might be affordable, might even be free if you're disabled. But the time cost every single day throughout an entire year of working is hours and hours and hours of time that I am just waiting for the transportation to get me where I'm going instead of getting there independently. Now, we'll get into this when I talk in part 2 about money, but the alternative is something like Lyft or Uber, a rideshare service. And I find that this is the happiest medium between time and money that I have access to when my primary system, which I'll talk about in a moment, doesn't work out. Now, that typically looks like paying, for me, an average of about $10 to go home, right? One way. And maybe waiting, I would say on average about 6 or 7 minutes, maybe closer to 10. And just 10 minutes from when I request it. So if I requested it at, 5 o'clock, I could maybe get in the car by 5 to 10 after 5, and then be home just a few minutes after that, because it's a door-to-door kind of deal, right? Now, that costs money. We're going to talk about that in part 2. I'm not going to dwell on that. What I am going to say is that my primary system, and I'm very fortunate right now that this works, is that my wife is able to get me to and from work. So she wakes up in the morning when I do, and we usually make a cup of coffee to go, a cup of tea to go, and we can hop in the car and go to work. And she is willing to do that, and not every disabled person has access to someone who is ready and willing 5 days a week to get you to and from work, and that costs time. And so because I don't have to spend that time or that money on transportation in the same way, it actually makes it easier to help my wife and support her and say, hey, I'm gonna help you with gas then, or I can pay for the oil change on the car, right? And the time cost doesn't stop at transportation, you guys. Time when you're disabled goes so much further in terms of just navigation, in terms of accessibility needs. So for example, I use a screen reader, which is a piece of software that allows me to navigate text on a screen that is read out loud to me, and I can use different kinds of commands to navigate around a website. Now, for a sighted person, one of the tasks that I do daily is that I input time cards for the clients I work with. And for a sighted person, you kind of click a box to check their name, click down and select which job they're in, what time they left, and when they went home, or what time they got there rather, and when they went home, and then you click, submit. That's it. Probably takes about 10 to 15 seconds per person. With this screen reader, I have to navigate to the space where the names are, tell the screen reader that I'd like to enter that space, locate a person, locate the checkbox, click the checkbox. These are all individual keystrokes, by the way. So we're at, let's see, we're gonna count this on my fingers. I don't usually do this, but number one, we're gonna find the space that I want to navigate. Number two, we're gonna tell it we want to interact with that space. Number three, we're gonna locate the name of the person. Number four, we're gonna click the checkbox, or navigate to the checkbox rather. Number five, we're gonna click said checkbox. Number six, we're gonna navigate to the space where the jobs are located and tell the screen reader, number seven, that we want to interact with that space. Number eight, I'm gonna open a list. Number nine, I'm gonna pick the job. These are all individual keystrokes. Number 10, I'm gonna tab to the next field and type in the time that they came in. Number 11, I'm gonna go to, I have no many more fingers. I'm gonna go to the next field and select when they are going to leave. And number 12, I'm gonna tab to the save button in about 13. This is just rough estimating. 13 steps it took me to do the exact same process. Nothing about what I did is any different than how a sighted person would do this. It just takes me way longer to do this exact same thing. And you might not think that that's a big deal. However, kind of like the transportation where you add that up for 5 days out of a week. When I add up every person, let's just say I take care of 5 people, right, in a day, and you add up all the extra time it took me to navigate to their items, to pick them, to, set them up properly, it's probably minutes. And when you add that up over the course of a week and a month and a year, again, you get hours spent on navigating the same process that the rest of the world uses. Is it accessible? Yes. I am grateful that I'm able to have a job and I'm able to do these things, but that doesn't mean it doesn't take me extra time and effort to do the exact same thing that a non-disabled person requires next to no effort to complete. So we've talked about transportation. We've talked about kind of navigating space, navigating technology specifically is kind of what that one was getting to. And that applies to every aspect of technology. Again, does it work? Yes. Are there tools to make things easier and accessible to me where they wouldn't have been before? Yes. But the hidden cost underneath that is time. Now, the last piece that I wanted to talk about is shopping and personalization of your life. And this is a really hard thing. I don't have a script and I'm gonna not make a lot of sense here, and I apologize. I will try to refine this idea for future videos. But as a blind person, there are so many things about the world inherently that are visual and that take time, number one, to be explained, number two, to be internalized, and then number three, to be able to be used by me in a way that I actually want to use them rather than just a way that's convenient enough. I made a video quite a while ago, I think called, Is It Good Enough to Move On? And there I talked about, we don't spend a lot of time as disabled people actually getting or answering questions about or, designing things that we actually want. We spend a lot of time making it good enough and moving on to the next thing. And only since I've gotten married and moved into a house and worked on a space like this studio have I realized that some of the things that I like and that I want and that I would like to figure out are the way that they are. Now, for example, the orange colored lights that you see behind me here are a rope light by, the company Govee, and they kind of give off a neon type aesthetic, and I really liked that, and I really wanted that, and so I did a really bad DIY job on them on my desk. But you know what? I did that. It took a lot of time, it took a lot of effort, but I put something in a space because I wanted it there, and then when I film like this, I can select a color, right? I have the vision and the ability through this not accessible Govee app, which I've talked about, to do that. That applies to everything, dude. Clothing, fashion. I just had what I had growing up. I had whatever clothes were given to me, and I had no real input on a lot of them. And so I just wore clothes. I just had some clothes and I wore them. And up through when I was in college, I just kind of had what I had. And only now that I can pick things out, that takes so much time. And my wife has been willing to go shopping and help me pick things out and walk me through things and explain visual nuances that I don't understand, and put up with me hemming and hawing and not knowing what I want to do, and then getting annoyed and overwhelmed by the prospect of shopping because it takes so much more time and effort. And I appreciate that, but it takes years to do these things. And only because I have a really solid support network in mostly my wife and my friends around me and now my job, am I able to kind of take ownership of these things for myself. And that's not easy to do, but it takes time. So I hope that this made some kind of sense. It was very rambly. I did not have a script, as I said. In part 2, we're going to talk about money and the actual cost of some things that I use and I have and I've utilized that are financially just incredibly costly. And so time applies to so many more things than what I was able to cover in this video. There are so many aspects to being alive that I don't even think about the fact that they take more time, because for me, they're just the things that I do. But I'm happy to touch back on this at some point. If you have any thoughts about things that take you more time or that you've noticed seem to take more time for disabled people in your life, let me know. I know that we're starting to build an amazing community on this channel, and I want to hear more from the people who have been so supportive of me. There's almost 400 of you, which is awesome. So appreciate all of you. I hope you're taking care of yourselves and taking care of each other, and we'll see you soon. Peace.